and welcome to Leader Feeder, where we share tips and strategies for frontline leaders in manufacturing. I'm sitting down with Kirk Langford. He's our general manager. Hi, Kirk.
Hi, Suze. How are you?
Yeah, super duper. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
Yeah, we're always good, eh? Which is nice.
Yeah, we're just
always
bumping along.
Always chilling. Today on Leader Feeder, we have 4 tips for leaders who have maybe shifted from that peer into leader.
Yeah,
because as we know, anyone who was hired within, which is great, which is fantastic. We love to see the hire from within, but we also know that there are some big challenges from going from buddies, right? Being like friends with everybody to all of a sudden having to lead
having
them.
to be their boss,
Right.
I love your disclaimer, by the way, which is great. That's good. That's all right.
Super duper. Yeah, like hire from within.
Yeah.
We love that for you.
And we see that, pardon me, with a lot of our clients. Like I would say, probably 80%, maybe even 90% of the clients we work with when we're dealing with frontline leaders, it's people that have been hired from within or promoted from within, pardon me.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
so
like
common.
you guys always say, like they're hired because of their technical skills. They're great at, doing their jobs
Running
technically
machines,
and running
the
machines and things like that. Yeah. And then of course, because of their good attitudes and great job, they get promoted. But now they're left with leading a team that maybe the soft skills are more required, right?
Sure.
You have to learn more about communication. It's not, you guys always say too, like it's not just about doing things yourself anymore. Now it's about getting things done through the team, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So we're sharing today some tips. There's actually 5 to
bonus
correct my
tip.
Yeah, exactly.
Bonus tip, yeah.
And the first one that we want to talk about is being friendly, not friends. So what can you say to that?
Yeah. The first thing I will say is that being friendly but not friends, it doesn't mean you can't be friends with people on your team, especially, again, you were a peer or a coworker, and now you're the leader of that team. So that might mean that someone was what used to be your coworker and friend.
Work friend.
Yeah, exactly. Work friend is now someone that you are in charge of. It doesn't mean you can't be friends. But what it means is that when you're at work, when you're on the floor, or when you're on the job site, that's where, you got to put the friendship aside and you've got to focus on being friendly because you want all of the team members to be treated fairly or equitably, right? And so that means that if we're super, chummy with one other person or 2 other people on the team and the rest of the team, maybe they're not getting the cold shoulder, but they're just kind of getting a, hey, how's it going? That's going to get noticed and that's going to be really hard for the rest of the team to overcome. And it leads to tons of other problems down the road. In our leadership training, we hear all the time about new leaders. First of all, new leaders saying, it is a struggle because how do I go from being friendly to being friends to being friendly, but also people that go, I had a leader that was like that where, one of their best friends was on the team and it made it really challenging because they would be, there were favorites playing at play and whatnot. So I think you want to put the friendship aside to some degree, but remain friendly. And the way we remain friendly is basically you treat them like you would treat anyone else on the team. So how you figure that out, because you could think, well, how do I know what I should say or shouldn't say? Think, okay, well, what about the people that I'm less familiar with, that I'm not friends with? What do I say to them? What do I not say to them? Well, apply those same rules to the person that you are friends with. So if you wouldn't talk about your wife and kids with anybody else on your team, maybe that's just something that you don't feel is territory you would go into, then you shouldn't be talking about it with that person that is your friend outside of work at work, right? Maybe it means that at work we don't talk about our families or we don't talk about our hobbies unless I was going to do it with the rest of my team.
Yeah. And that might start with setting some boundaries with that friend and probably a conversation, right?
That's a great point.
It's like, hey, Kirk, you and I, great friends, but when we get to work or, I need things to be work. And when we're outside of work, we're not sitting here talking about work almost, that kind of thing. Because, like setting those boundaries, I imagine is what.
And you're right. A conversation when you first get promoted, for example, it can be a tough conversation. Yeah. But I think it can be casual enough to say, hey, now that I'm like the boss on the team or now that I'm the supervisor, I just don't want you to take it personally, but I just want to make sure everybody feels treated equally. So, I'm not going to talk much about, us hanging out on the weekend because I wasn't hanging out with anybody else. So we'll just keep that for after hours, and this will be, during work hours, we just keep it to work-related stuff.
Yeah, super. Yeah. So our second tip, Kirk, why don't you lead us into our second tip?
Keeping people in the loop. Yeah.
Yes, important.
So that refers to keeping everybody on your team in the loop, because what can happen is if you are a peer and then you move into a leader, you're friends with some of those people maybe, or at least closer to certain people than others, you're more likely by default to kind of keep those people in the loop, tell them things, keep them apprised of certain situations more than you might just everybody else on the team. And that's okay to some degree when you're a peer. But once you're a leader, it's not so much about telling the people that you're closest with the information. It's about telling the people who need to know that information when they need to know it. And it can be pretty frustrating to be that person on the team that needed to know information, but because because the leader wasn't as close to you as they were to somebody else, they told the other person, and now you're finding it out through them. And you're kind of going, either I should have known before someone else, or we all should have known kind of at the same time. And so, and then there's an added level of frustration that's like, I'm not even finding out through the leader, I'm finding out through someone else on the team. Yeah. So keeping people in the loop is about thinking about who needs to know what information, and sharing that information sort of readily. And I think also one tip I would have for leaders is, I think an older model of leadership, like a more maybe autocratic model of leadership that we used to see more so like, in the 50s and before that, I think we've changed a lot, but there are still workplaces where you see that more autocratic leadership style. They tend to withhold information. It's a bit of I'm the leader. That means I know information. You don't get to know information. I would encourage leaders, if there's leaders listening to this episode or this podcast right now, to be on the other side and actually give away a fair bit of information, even if there's certain things that they may sometimes go, I'm not sure if this is quite relevant yet, but I'm just going to share it with you and let you know.
It's coming down the pipe.
Yeah, rather than withhold it and then kind of get to hang that over your head. Because kind of your authority as the leader, again, it used to be that feeling of like, well, I have more information than you, I have more power than you, I have more decision-making ability, and that's what made you a leader. And I think we've really shifted to more like, I support you, I remove barriers for you, I tell you what I know. So really, as my job as a leader is to, as Greg Schinkel always says, like relentlessly remove ambiguity is one thing. So you should be relentlessly removing ambiguity and removing barriers for your team so they can get their work done. Yeah. So keeping everybody in the loop, again, is about not making sure that not just the person you used to be friends with on the team or are currently friends with knows more than anybody else, but keeping everybody sort of equally in the loop.
Yeah, absolutely. And our third tip, actually we roll right into our third tip because it talks about avoid favoritism.
Yeah, for sure.
It's our third tip. Yeah. And I mean, I think that just kind of goes hand in hand with keeping people in the loop, because if you are, or being friends and not friendly, right? We're kind of going down this path of, if you're friends, then if you were friends with someone before you became everyone's leader, other people on your team who maybe aren't your friends will be like, oh, well, Johnny always gets that task because they're friends.
Yeah, that's right. 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what we tend to hear about in our leadership training, right? Is we hear when we say, what examples of favoritism have you dealt with or have you experienced in the past? It's often things like the tasks that a person on the shift gets assigned. Mm-hmm. It might be the shift that they're scheduled to work or not work. Mm-hmm, so, there's always going to be a little bit of flexibility that is at the leader's discretion. So what do they get to decide what this person does or doesn't do? Right. Who gets to go to do that thing or not that thing?
Who gets cross-trained first?
Yeah, who gets cross-trained, and it's really easy to go to somebody that, and I should mention, by the way, like often, when you are playing favorites, I don't think it's often this knowing sort of, I want to play favorites. I want other people on the team to feel left out. But it's like, I go and I trust Suze. I know she's a hard worker. Yeah. I know she gets stuff done. It's not that I don't like Wendy, but I just don't know her as well.
It might be an unconscious kind of decision almost,
exactly.
Right? Where I know where this is going to get done. Yeah.
And I don't realize that comes off as favoritism. In my head, it came off as, well, I know Suzanne's the right person for the job. But because I haven't asked myself, could Wendy be the right person for the job, I automatically defaulted to you.
Right.
As a result, now Wendy doesn't even get the chance. And I don't even get to know whether I actually have two people on my team that could do a certain task, and that could actually save me down the road if you call in sick, if you get promoted, or if you're just not feeling like doing something a certain day or something comes up. Now I know I can rely on Wendy. So favoritism can really be nasty for a lot of reasons, but certainly it creates this feeling on the team that, Suze gets all the preferable shifts, or she does all the preferable tasks, and we get stuck with the leftovers. And that's not something you want to deal with.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that could also fall into the line of maybe they're not even friends. I know I kind of took us down this friendship path, but you can also sometimes be picking favorites or whatever just based on, like you said, skill level, right? So you don't even have to be friends with that person. It's just, interesting. Just avoid favoritism in general. Yeah. Just be aware.
Yeah, and it brings up a good point, which is, like you mentioned, it might not be because you're friends with someone, but there's the idea of like perception of favoritism. So someone might see our relationship and like, oh, he gives her these tasks, he gives her these different shifts.
They get to do a fun podcast together.
Right, they get to do a podcast together. Yeah, exactly. And instead of them seeing it from my perspective, which is, oh, I give those tasks to Suzanne because I know she's very competent. I know she'll get it done. I can rely on her. It comes off as, oh, well, you like her better. And so there's that's not maybe even true favoritism from the part of the leader, but there's a perception of favoritism.
Interesting.
And the tricky part about the perception of favoritism, or the idea that it's there, is that it can be just as detrimental to the team as actual favoritism.
And you might not even know it.
You might not even know it, yeah.
So yeah, being
as fair as you
aware
can be
how
is
you're
better.
treating people. Yeah, exactly. Just making sure that everything's equal, which is tip number 4. Go for it, Kirk. What's tip number 4?
Equal opportunities for variety and challenge. So when you get, in some manufacturing environments and some, plants and some sites we've worked with, there isn't a lot of variation and there isn't a lot of wiggle room for different things, but in some there is.
Okay.
And so when you have the option to provide a little bit of variety or a unique challenge to certain team members, make sure you spread that out evenly. So not just tasks that are everyday tasks or shifts, but specifically things that someone can really, do something a little bit different, whether it's challenging them a little bit to perform a little bit better or try something they haven't tried before.
Giving them a little more responsibility.
Giving them a bit more responsibility, allowing them, empowering them to do something that previously they haven't been empowered to do. You want to find equal opportunities for that. So find opportunities to go, last time, this other thing came up, I handed it off to Suze and she did a great job, but I'd actually like to hand this next one off to Wendy because I want to see what she can do. I want to see what she's capable of. And I know I have Suze to do it if I run into issues with Wendy, or if Wendy says, it's not really my thing, or I'm not capable of it, or whatever. Or you can even help mentor. Going back to, episodes we've done on mentoring and coaching, you could even go back and mentor Wendy on that to help her be successful at it so that we become more successful as a team.
Yeah, really step into your role as a leader, right? You start all these moving parts. Absolutely. I love that. So our 5th tip for
the bonus tip,
exactly, for our leaders today, addressing issues quickly. So yes, if you're moving from peer to leader, first thing I guess, well, maybe not first thing, everybody, but one of the things, of course, you want to be aware of is nipping.
You might run into issues.
Nipping those issues in the bud, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, as this happens, as you're trying to be a leader that was previously a peer, you're trying to be friendly but not be friends. You're trying to avoid favoritism. You're trying to keep people in the loop.
When you put it that way.
There's a lot, right? and you're also just trying to do your job, right? Which is a lot. And so you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to fall a few times. And that can, and actually I should mention, even if you're doing things really well, there will sometimes still be issues because maybe you're coming into a team that had some existing issues anyway, that you're sort of inheriting as the leader. So when issues come up, it is much better to address them promptly. It is much easier to deal with a small issue than it is a big issue. And even though that can be daunting or kind of scary, I know, especially when I was younger, I would come across kind of confrontation or issues, and my biggest hope is that they would just go away on their own. And the reality is that they generally don't. They don't go away.
Almost.
They fester. They might disappear from the surface, but it's usually because they've gone down, and those two people that maybe had some sort of issue or some sort of beef, it's not that they've become best friends. It's not even that they've become, not that they've even gotten over it. It's more just like you said, it's festering under the surface, and probably when it rears its ugly head again, it's going to be even worse. So you're better off bringing it out into the open in a respectful way, in a constructive way, and being like, hey, I get that there's some issues we got to deal with here. Let's talk about that. I'd like to hear what's going on.
As a true leader would.
Yeah, exactly. So, if someone does come up and say, well, I kind of feel like you're playing favorites, instead of discounting that or dismissing it. Oh, no, not at all. I treat everyone fairly. I know it might seem like I'm closer with Dan, but hey, no, everything's fine. Actually saying, hey, well, I appreciate you bringing that forward. Can you give me some examples of where you've felt like that I've been playing favorites so I can understand kind of from your point of view where you're seeing that, right? So I think addressing issues quickly when they do pop up, and hopefully they don't pop up a lot, but we're humans, we're complex creatures, issues do arise, doing it quickly. I think what we tend to see is as the time continues, the tension escalates. And so the longer you take to deal with it, the harder it's going to be to deal with it.
Awesome. So those are our 5 great tips for people moving from a peer to a frontline leader. Yeah, absolutely.
And if this piqued your interest, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, this was really helpful. We have a whole leadership training program and programs.
Yes,
specifically,
we
have one all about emerging leaders and kind of when you're in that transition from peer to leader.
Aspiring leaders. Yes, absolutely. Our frontline leadership, we got 3 levels of that. that.
That's right.
You know?
So if you're a leader, or if you're maybe an HR manager listening to this, a T&D leader, and you're thinking that you want to have a conversation and learn a little bit more about what we do and how we do it, you can reach out to us at uniquedevelopment.com or hello@uniquedevelopment.com. You can send us an email.
Absolutely.
Or if you're finding us on social media, just drop us a message anywhere you can
Most
find us.
certainly.
We'll respond. And we would love to
Absolutely.
hear from you and really help your organization not just do better at moving from peer to leader, but just leadership development in general. It's our jam and we love it. So
Absolutely. So until next time, listeners, take care.
bye.